Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Rocket Chiro Podcast, a business and marketing podcast for chiropractors. My name's Jerry. I'm your host. I'm a former chiropractor. I help chiropractors now with websites and local search. I help new chiropractors get started, stuck chiropractors get unstuck, and I host this little podcast. Today we're going to do a little bit of a mashup episode where we're going to just talk about two things that aren't necessarily related. The first one is going to just be the smart way to make big changes. A lot of chiropractors that listen to my podcast are just getting started as chiropractors. Maybe you're an associate and you're trying to transition to your own thing. And maybe you're just making a different big change within practice. And this information is sort of just my dad advice for you. Just something I've learned from my own experience of falling into a trap and making some mistakes with making big changes. And so I'm going to share that with you guys. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is just about the danger of connecting your fees to time. This doesn't apply to chiropractors who do mostly just adjusting or just exclusively adjusting. That's not typically what they do. But chiropractors who do a little bit more soft tissue and spend a little bit more time with patients sometimes can make the mistake of connecting their fees and their visits to time. And I think that that's a mistake. So we're going to unpack those two things in this episode. Before I get into that, I do want to remind you, if you want a better chiropractic website, then check out the Rocket Chiropractic websites. If you would like help with local search, I can help you with that as well. But I also have just recently changed it to where the only local SEO clients I'm taking are my own website clients. That just allows me to have full control over the website and the content, and with some recent changes with Google, that seems to be the best philosophy and best approach for what I do specifically. Now, if you are wanting to go beyond the podcast and you want some additional information, some additional help, you want access to me, check out my Next Step program. It's a great place to get that. It's affordable. It's month to month. It's designed for chiropractors who are just getting started or chiropractors who are feeling a little bit stuck and you want to go beyond the podcast and want a little hand holding along the way. Last thing I'll say is this, is if you just want me to look at your stuff and give you my 2 cents, for whatever that's worth, my 4 cents. I used to jokingly say my opinion's worth twice as much, but as I've gotten older, I realize it's really not. So we're back down to 2 cents. If you want my 2 cents on your website and your local SEO, show you how you compare to other people in your area, I'd be happy to do that with a free website and SEO assessment. You can request that for free at rocketchiro.com. All right, so I've had a couple clients recently that have reached out to me. One is transitioning into a different type of practice. Like the way that she's practicing now is she wants to transition out of that and start doing a different type. And I'm not going to go into details because I don't really, it doesn't really matter. But it is a pretty significant change. I think it's actually a really good move for her long term. But in the meantime, her current way of practicing is what is paying the bills. So you have to be aware of that. Similar situation is I have a client that reached out to me who is working for another chiropractor as an associate, but she's also starting her own practice on the side. Now, I think it's great that she can actually do that because there are some associates that have this big hang up and problem with you having a side gig essentially as you start your own practice, or they have non-competes and all kinds of weird stuff. So the fact that she can have a job where she can make some money, have it secured, a secure income, and start her practice at the same time, I think that's actually really great. Both of these situations present a dangerous opportunity, and that dangerous opportunity is to make big changes when it's not necessarily a great time to make a big change. Let me elaborate. And I'll elaborate by telling you my own failures. So when I closed my practice, I had known for several years before I closed my practice that I just didn't want to practice anymore. I wasn't going to be a chiropractor forever. I just kind of knew that. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do after that. I wasn't planning on doing Rocket Chiro or anything related to chiropractors. I was sort of looking at doing some online sales stuff and different website things, stuff like that. So I started doing some of that stuff before I closed, but I was working full time in my practice, so I had a limited amount of time that was available. I put my practice up for sale and I arbitrarily just drew a line in the sand and just basically said, whenever this month is over, if I haven't sold the practice or I don't have a viable person interested in buying it, then I'm just going to close the practice. I'm going to take the financial dump. I'm just going to sell off my equipment. Sorry, I have a For those of you watching, for the 3 people watching online, I just hit my thermos and I almost knocked it on the floor and I grabbed it. So I just made a startling motion. Anyway, I'm not going to edit that because I'm a professional and that's how this podcast is. So I decided that I was going to close my practice and just say, okay, my lease was up at that point. My landlord would have extended the lease month to month. Like he would have been perfectly fine with that. I had a great relationship with him, but I just basically said, I'm kind of done. I'm ready to move on. I was sort of mentally checking out, and I decided that if I didn't have something by this point, I was just going to close the office, sell my equipment, take the financial hit, and just move on to something else. There's sort of a built-in assumption that goes along with that. And my built-in assumption was with the money that I had saved, the money that I had, that I was going to get from like selling equipment and things of that nature, that would sort of float me until this other thing got going the way that I would like it to get going. I kind of just assumed that because I was good at practice and because I was good at running a small business in that way, that I was going to be good at this other thing. And that like there was some sort of transfer of properties that went along with my success over here equals my success over there, which is honestly just a really dumb way to think about things. But that's kind of where my mind was at. And since I've always sort of been able to figure things out, I just figured that, well, I'll close it. I'll be able to put all my energy and all my time and all my effort into that. And although it's not doing well at the moment where it needs to be, now that I can put all my energy, my time, my effort into it, I'll go ahead and do that. I'll have this money that can float me. I'll be fine. Now, what I don't think I've ever talked about on this podcast is that I've said before that I tried to do something that I sucked at, and that's absolutely true. To the extent that I sucked at it and the terribleness of the financial problems that I had as a result of making that decision, closing my practice down, while I didn't have something else to keep me afloat or even close to keeping me afloat, I went through probably the hardest financial time of my entire life. And that includes even getting started as a chiropractor. So it was rough. It was really rough. And I look back at that and I think to myself, I could have done that differently. Now, is there the possibility that I could have taken that risk? I could have burned the boats. I could have put yourself out there, you get that fear of failure, whatever. And then hey, it all works out. I'm fine. And it was a perfectly right thing to do. I mean, for some people that might be the case, but I think that being successful requires a certain amount of luck. It requires a lot of hard work. There's risk involved with being a small business owner and doing anything like that on your own. And the important thing to understand, this is something that I've preached over and over again to my docs that are getting started, is I don't think it's smart to take unnecessary risks. This is true for a lot of things. I've mentioned on the podcast before, I like riding a motorcycle. Now I've sold my motorcycle since our son was born. It's sort of just something I've put on the back burner. Maybe it's not an ever thing again, just because it is risky and it is dangerous. But when I ride a motorcycle, I wear gear, I wear a helmet, I wear riding pants, riding boots. I fully gear up, even if it was 90 degrees outside, 95 degrees outside. If I'm riding, I'm fully geared up because if something is going to be risky, I want to try to mitigate risk, because if something goes south, I want that to be as minimal and as non-detrimental as possible. This also applies to practice. And what I should have done as I look back on closing my practice, there's a lot of options that I had that I didn't consider because I was just sort of burned out. But what I should have done if I was going to close my practice, even if I was just going to shut it down and take the financial hit that I did, what I should have done is I should have continued to nights and weekends and just work on this other thing until it was viable, and then shut down the thing that I don't want to do anymore. That is, you're kind of sucking some energy out of me, but it's also paying the bills. Now we'll take this back and go all the way back to our clients that I talked about here. The one client is transitioning from a type of practice, different type of practice. Another one is transitioning from associate to own position. The same principle applies, that both of these chiropractors should be treating these new things as side gigs, not the main thing. And they have to really avoid, and this is true for you too, if you're going to make a big change in your practice, you have to avoid the temptation to cut off something that is useful for now, even if it isn't something that you're going to be doing long term, but it's useful for now, cutting that off purely based on hope and positivity. Like, I'm so excited about this new thing that I'm going to build that I'm going to just quit my associate job when they'll let me work there. Like, that's the crazy thing, right? It's like, they'll let me work there. I don't have to quit it. Now, does it interfere with my time? Does it interfere with my schedule? Does it interfere with my marketing? Yes. But that new practice you're getting ready to start, it's not making any money right now. There's no momentum. And the same thing is true for your different style of practice. And I'll use upper cervical as an example because that's what I did. If I was doing like sports chiropractic or full spine chiropractic in practice, and then I went to an upper cervical conference, I got super excited about it, and I decided I'm going to do upper cervical. I'm going to do it. That's all I'm going to do. It's awesome. It's the best. That's what I'm going to do. If I went back to my practice and just told everybody, this is it. You know, some will, some won't. So what? Next, please. Like, we're all doing upper cervical. Otherwise, get out. You're the wrong person. You're a bad fit. That's stupid. And the reason that's stupid is because you're just cutting off your nose to spite your face. You're hurting yourself in the short term because you're super excited about this new change and new thing you're doing. What would make way more sense in that scenario is for me to go back to my practice and let my patients know about this new thing that I'm doing, this new way that I'm doing it, give them the opportunity to transition. The ones who take it, go ahead and transition them. The ones who don't, continue to do the stuff I was doing before in the meantime, because I'm not going to cut off my nose to spite my face. And then all the new people that come into the practice, we're going to be introducing them to the practice under this new model. And they're not going to get the opportunity to do the old thing. Eventually, what will happen is the old stuff will get phased out because the new stuff will take over. And the same thing is true for this doc who's starting her practice, is that if she gets some practice momentum, eventually working in the evenings and working in the weekends, like, that's not going to be enough. And the job that was there helping her make money and creating stability in her life starts to become a hindrance. And not a hindrance in your mind because, like, oh, if I could just stop doing this, then I could do that. But an actual financial hindrance where you're like, man, this is getting in the way. Now, I don't know that in that scenario where you're changing from getting paid to doing your own thing, I don't know that there's a scenario where you're not going to take a dip in your income temporarily. The point of this is you want to just mitigate that as much as possible. You want to make sure that the thing you have going, there's a proof of concept. It can't just be hope. You can't watch a Gary Vee video, get all amped up about something, and then decide to start going to garage sales and selling stuff on eBay, and that's going to be your income. Like, you can't do that. Like, there's so much that goes into being successful. There's so much that goes into things working out. And some of it's luck, and some of it you have no control over. So if you have a situation, and I would also apply this since a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are new and getting started. If you have an old used car that's running, don't buy a new car just to, like, I'm a doctor now, I'm a real doctor, whatever. I'm going to have a new car and I don't have a practice that's up and making enough money yet. Like, you're making your life harder than it has to be. You don't have to move out of that small apartment. You don't have to get that big space when you don't have. This is why I advocate the micro practice. It's the same philosophy. Why go get a loan and put yourself in all kinds of risk and put yourself behind the eight ball because you want a 5,000 square foot space when you could get started in a room or two? Don't move out of the apartment. Like, don't move out of your parents' house. Like, don't move, like, you know what I mean? Like, if there are things that temporarily they suck. Like, it's not what you want to do long-term. Like, maybe you don't want to drive that car. You don't want to live in that apartment. You don't want to work out of 2 rooms or one little room out of a medical doctor's office or whatever. Like, I get it. I understand. But doing those things temporarily and using the fact that those things are bothering you as motivation, and then having proof of concept that the thing you're trying to do is going to work and it has momentum, then you make the change. Don't make the change on hope. Don't make the change because you expect it to be a certain way. Don't make the change because you watch some video of somebody got you all amped up and excited and there's no reason a chiropractor can fail because everybody wants what you do. Don't make your life harder than it has to be. That's basically the gist of it. That's my dad advice to you. Don't make your life harder than it has to be. All right, last thing. This one will be a lot more quick because I don't have a ton to say about this other than I've had over the years chiropractors reach out to me who are clients of mine, and they do a lot of soft tissue work. A lot of times when they talk about their visits, they'll talk about them like, I do 60-minute visits. I do 30-minute visits. I always will tell them the same thing. Don't connect time to your visit, because what you should be focusing on is value. Chiropractors that only adjust, like they know this intuitively. They know this. I had my chiropractor. I was actually talking to my chiropractor about websites and SEO stuff because he wanted me to look at his website. And he made the comment, because he's paying a decent amount of money for the stuff he has now. And he made the comment, like, I don't know how much time they're spending on my website each month. And I told him, I said, I don't think that's a good measure of whether it's worth paying for or not. I just don't. And I told him, I said, you wouldn't, he only adjusts and he doesn't spend a lot of time with patients. And I'm like, you wouldn't want someone saying that you're not a good chiropractor because you don't spend 30 minutes with them. So, he knows, and any chiropractor that does adjustments only, you would know that you're not being paid for your time. You're being paid for the result. You're being paid for the benefit. You're being paid for your expertise. You're getting paid for the result. When chiropractors do soft tissue work, a lot of times there's like a shift that happens where they start talking about what they're doing within the context of time, almost like they're a massage therapist. And the problem with that is, like, if I went to a massage therapist and I went to go get a massage and I'm like, it said like, hey, I'm going to get a 60-minute massage. I want a 60-minute massage. I don't want a 40-minute massage. I don't want a 45-minute massage. That puts a tremendous amount of restraints on your business model, your marketing, what you can do and not do. It's just restraining. It's not great. So if there's like a time frame associated with what you do as a chiropractor, what I would suggest that you do is I would just suggest that you give a range. So if somebody asks like, hey, how long is your typical visit? Give them a range. It's 5 to 10 minutes. It's 15 to 20 minutes. It's 20 to 30 minutes. Even if it's an hour, I would say 40 minutes to an hour. Give yourself some buffer there. So if somebody shows up late, like, you don't have to give them the 60 minutes or have an argument with them about the 60 minutes when they're like, oh, I paid for 60 minutes. That's not good. So don't connect what you're doing to time. The other thing I would say is this, is if you do have a like ideal situation, like my perfect patient, I'm going to spend an hour with them. Okay. Not everybody's going to do that. And not everybody's going to be able to pay for it. And so the other thing I would recommend doing is if that's your situation where you do these longer visits, I would recommend having at least one more, possibly two more tiers to what you're doing. Have an option where if somebody just wants to come in and get an adjustment or just want to come in and get a tune-up, you have that available. It's like, oh, it's $50. You're spending less than 10 minutes with the person. Like, why not do that? Why not have that option? Because there's a percentage of people that's what they want. Like if you can get good results with adjustments, you're good with adjustments. I mean, if you're not good at adjusting, then it doesn't really matter. You have to do soft tissue stuff. But if you're good at adjusting, having that as an option where it doesn't take a lot of time, you'll probably make more money per minute if you really broke it down doing it that way. Then you can have like a secondary thing where it's like, hey, my normal visits are about 20 to 30 minutes. But then we have these longer visits. We have these like more in-depth visits for people that they need it or they want it or they're in like a really bad way. And we have to do some of these longer visits. I think it's good to have tiers to what you're doing, even if you're doing these like longer visits. Give people options, because that way they can be flexible with money. You can be flexible with time. It's just a smarter way of doing it instead of just saying everybody has to be here 60 minutes. I mean, I love my chiropractor, and if I had to commit to 60 minutes every single time I went in there, I just wouldn't. Like, I would just go to somebody else. Like, I don't have any interest in doing that. And so there are going to be, now I'm not saying everybody's like me. That's a silly thing to think, but there are going to be people that just don't want to do it because it's too much money or it's too much time. Giving them a secondary option, assuming you can provide value within that context, so that time frame, I think is a smart thing to do. But the overall feel is this: just don't connect them together. Don't connect time to your visit unless it's just a generic range, and be generous with yourself. All right, that's it, guys. I'm going to close this out. I have a few different podcasts planned here coming soon. I think I want to talk more about AI here in the near future. It's coming up a lot. People ask a lot of questions. I think there's a lot of confusion about it, so I'll probably do that sometime here soon. But In the meantime, I'll just say, if you would like me to look at your website or you want help with that, reach out to me through Rocket Chiro. If you want to leave a review for the podcast, you can do it in Apple Podcasts. You can do that on the Google. We have a Google business profile. The link is in the footer of Rocket Chiro. You can find it there. I always appreciate it. I appreciate you sharing the podcast. I've had some people recently reach out to me just because somebody that listens to the podcast all the time referred them. I'm super appreciative of that. Like, this is not a big podcast. I am not a big operation. I have a small number of clients that I take really good care of and a small number of listeners who are very, very loyal to the podcast. But if you know a chiropractor that you think would benefit from this, I really would appreciate you sharing it with them. I'm done. I'm going to wrap this up. I'll talk to you guys later. See you.